There is no shortage of iconic action films from the 80s, and Rambo First Blood sits comfortably atop the upper echelon of not only that era, but of all time. That's because it's a simple story drenched in real, palpable human emotion and was actually based on a book written a decade earlier by David Morrell. The film sequels went hard on the action end of things and were more or less showcases for Sylvester Stallone's muscles and an ad for body oil. If you've not seen 1982's Rambo First Blood, well, you should, but that's actually not the movie this game is based on. The NES Rambo is based on its sequel, Rambo First Blood Part 2, widely accepted as the most confusing title for a blockbuster film ever. Take it from me in this review, Rambo First Review Part 1. Set 3 years after the events of the first film, in Rambo 2, as I'll call it, Vietnam vet turned vigilante John Rambo can have his prison sentence commuted if he agrees to go into the sweltering hot, war-torn jungles of Vietnam once again and locate some POWs. The movie hit theaters on May 22, 1985. And on May 24th, 3 years later, almost to the day, Rambo would hit the shelves in North America for the NES. Let's see what's up. The major sequences of the game more or less follow the movie, but as you'd expect, there's a lot here that doesn't. To start, Rambo's commander asks if he'd like to leave prison or go on the mission. You can answer no, but nothing happens. Your task is actually just to go into Nam for a reconnaissance mission and take some pictures, but you and I both know we're going to be doing a little more than that. A very important aspect of this game, and detraction, in my opinion, are the level layouts. In general, left is west and right is east, so if someone gives you directions, that's easy enough to follow. Then to go north or south, you have to find marks on the ground with an N or S on them and press up to go through them as if they're doors. Easy enough to understand, but in some of the latter areas, this really gets confusing. You'll sometimes find that going one direction will loop an area over and over, and going the opposite direction takes you somewhere completely new. It can become really frustrating to remember which way to go to get back to a particular area as well, so keep that in mind. Jot down a map of where you've been as you play. That might help keep you from raging out. The game takes place in 4 major set pieces. In the first, you're largely alone with your knife, and the knife play here is tricky to handle. It's reminiscent of Zelda 2 Adventures of Link in that regard, but the chances of you landing a hit or getting hit when you're right up on an enemy feel worse here. A lot of enemies pounce in from off-screen and come at you fast, so taking damage becomes inevitable at some point when you're sporting the knife. There are world records for knife-only runs of this game, so there's a get good component to it, but the timing does take some getting used to. As you go, you'll be introduced to more and more weapons shown at the top. You'll always have your knife, and a cool thing about the game is, like Zelda 2, murdering stuff earns experience, or EXP, that will level up your attacks, so while enemies are annoying and often get the drop on you, it's worth your time to engage as many as you can early to build yourself up. Each time you level up, your health gets a boost too, and you do start with 5 life potions, but those don't replenish after you use a continue. You can find a few in the wild, but they're rare, so hoard them. The game has infinite continues, so choose death over potion if you think you can make it further on a redo. Be patient, learn the levels and where you need to go, die a few times and do it over, save your health for boss fights, and especially the final boss where you'll need a full stock of health juice or whatever that stuff is. At some point you'll unlock a throwing knife, bow and arrow, fire arrows, grenades, and a machine gun. The ranged weapons are limited in ammo, but enemies drop them regularly, so don't sweat it. The projectile weapons are a breath of fresh air over the knife, that's for sure, so indulge as you feel obliged. The look of the game isn't terrible, again, think Zelda 2, but with Rambo. The enemy variety is decent too. You'll face jungle cats, gun-wielding soldiers, bats, snakes, and whatever this Abadox-looking eye monster is down in the cave. Each area has its own mission, which typically involves scouring the level inside and out. You'll look for a boy who got trapped in a cave, then a POW locked away at a prison camp, then another POW, and finally you scour a few warehouses and search for a key to your helicopter so you can go home. As you go, the story unfolds through cutscenes, and as I said, it does its 8-bit best to fit a movie in here. You will have to square off against some giant bosses that I don't remember from the film, like a flying robot or a giant spider. There's also a biker and a giant jungle cat out to kill you too. The music is nice, especially the mission theme. It slaps a little bit, and the overall sound design is fine. All told, I don't think the game is that bad, at least not as bad as the reputation that precedes it, but it is definitely aggravating. You have to account for Rambo's full swing of the knife and melee combat. It's not as instantaneous as you'd expect, so you'll have to compensate for that. The map and level layouts are confusing, so you'll spend a lot of your time wondering where you've been and where you need to go. There are infinite continues, which is great, and maybe the saving grace for me, but if you want to take a break and come back later, no problem, just enter this enormous password. There are a few more Rambo games that released back in the day. If Rambo on the NES doesn't look like the game for you, consider Rambo First Blood Part 2 on the Sega Master System. This one is a top-down, arcadey shooter similar to Akari Warriors or Commando. It was pretty well received and has a 2-player simultaneous mode, so that's fun. There's also Rambo 3 that was ported to a few different consoles, but here's the Genesis version. It's an arcade-style shooter based on the main plot points of the third Rambo movie, or Rambo Third Blood Part 1. No, I'm just kidding, it's Rambo 3. Well, that does it for Rambo on the NES. Always hoard that health juice, not toilet paper. And thanks for watching.